Sometimes awareness feels like a wound that never closes. You start noticing what others ignore. The little lies in people's smiles, the emptiness in their goals, the quiet desperation hidden beneath confidence. The more you see, the heavier it becomes. You can't unsee the patterns once you've recognized them. You notice how conversations repeat like scripts, how ambition often masks fear, and how everyone seems to be running from silence. At first, you think it's wisdom. Later, you realize it's a burden. You wish you could go back to not knowing so much, to feeling included in the noise. But once your eyes open, the world stops being home. It becomes something you observe from a distance, quietly carrying the weight of seeing too much. 120. Arthur Schopenhauer knew this feeling long before we did. He lived in a time when optimism was fashionable, when people celebrated progress and reason. Yet he stood apart, calling it all an illusion. He believed the world was driven by blind desire, that suffering was the rule, not the exception. His honesty made him unbearable to many, but unforgettable to a few. He became the archetype of the punished thinker, brilliant but exiled from comfort. His shadow still lingers today, not just in philosophy, but in every person who dares to see reality without its decoration. 100. It's strange how society treats deep thinkers. When they're alive, they're called pessimists. When they're gone, they're called visionaries. We build statues for those we once ignored. The same clarity that made them lonely becomes what makes them immortal. But why does truth need time to be accepted? Maybe because seeing clearly means disturbing what others want to believe. Clarity isn't comforting. It threatens the stories people depend on. And so thinkers live their lives misunderstood, while the world waits until they're gone to finally call them wise. The price of thought is often solitude. 120. Crowds don't hate the thinker because he's wrong. They hate him because he breaks the spell. Society runs on shared beliefs, illusions that keep everything in motion. When someone questions them, it feels like betrayal. The crowd protects itself not through logic, but through instinct. It mocks what it fears and silences what it doesn't understand. The rebellion of the crowd isn't loud. It's subtle. It hides in laughter, in dismissive remarks, in the quiet agreement to never go too deep. The thinker becomes an outsider, not by choice but by necessity. 100. Over time, you learn to stay quiet too. You realize not every truth needs to be spoken. You start to measure your words, not because you doubt them, but because you know they won't land. You see how easily curiosity gets labeled as arrogance, and how depth makes people uncomfortable. So, you retreat into silence, watching conversations unfold like theater. You nod where you're expected to. You smile on cue. On the surface, you blend in. Inside, you're somewhere else entirely, thinking, observing, waiting for someone who speaks your language. 100. And when you do speak, there's a strange kind of punishment waiting. It's not exile or anger. It's misunderstanding. People say you're too negative, too serious, too deep. They call it overthinking, as if thinking deeply were a flaw. You start to wonder if there's something wrong with you. You look around and realize most people don't want truth. They want comfort. The social punishment isn't loud, but it's constant. It teaches you that honesty comes with isolation and awareness demands silence. The world rewards masks, not mirrors. 100. The lonelier part is not being without people. It's being without understanding. You can sit in a room full of laughter and still feel like you're on another planet. Awareness creates distance, not because you choose it, but because few can walk that far with you. You see connections others don't. You sense things before they're spoken, and that sensitivity becomes a quiet curse. You crave simplicity, but can't return to it. So, you carry your clarity like a secret, half proud, half tired, wondering if peace lies in ignorance or in endurance. 120. Schopenhauer once wrote that to live alone is the fate of all great minds. At first, that sounds like arrogance, but it's more like resignation. He didn't mean solitude as a choice. It was an outcome. Those who see too deeply are often left behind, not because they push others away, but because the world walks faster toward distraction. His words echo across centuries, reaching anyone who's ever felt the same quiet exile. In them, you find a strange comfort, the reminder that your isolation is not failure, but proof of perception. 100. The truth is, most of what we call reality is built on shared illusions. We agree to see things a certain way so we can function together. Money, success, even happiness, these ideas survive because enough people believe in them. But when you start seeing through them, you threaten the foundation itself. The more you understand, the more dangerous you become to the comfortable order of things. That's why awareness feels like rebellion. The world doesn't fear evil. It fears clarity, because clarity ends the game. 120. So maybe the curse of seeing too much isn't a curse at all, but an initiation. You begin alone, disoriented, burdened by truths that no one else wants to hold. But over time, you realize there's quiet beauty in it too. The ability to stand outside illusion and still choose compassion. You learn to live gently with what you know, to see without bitterness. Awareness may isolate you, but it also frees you from pretending. The world needs dreamers, but it also needs those who wake up. And that's where the story truly begins. Most people think the world runs on logic, but it doesn't. It runs on belonging. Beneath every opinion, there's a quiet need to stay part of the group. We mirror what others believe, even when it feels wrong, because the fear of exclusion is stronger than the desire for truth. The herd instinct keeps us safe but small. It rewards agreement and punishes reflection. Deep down, every tribe knows that unity is easier to maintain than honesty. And so, truth becomes dangerous, not because it's false, but because it threatens the fragile peace of the collective dream. 100. Differences always carry a cost. When someone thinks beyond the boundaries of the group, they stop fitting neatly into its rhythm. What was once seen as intelligence begins to feel like rebellion. The thinker becomes the strange one, the one who ruins the mood by asking questions that have no easy answers. And because the herd cannot tolerate disruption, it slowly isolates the thinker until silence returns. Intelligence, without conformity, becomes exile. The moment you see what others won't, you become a mirror they cannot bear to face. 100. Schopenhauer understood this cycle long before psychology gave it a name. He once said that truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, and finally, it's accepted as self-evident. His words echo across time, revealing how resistance to truth is not ignorance, it's fear. Humanity has always needed time to adjust to what it cannot yet face. Every thinker, every artist, every voice that sees ahead must walk through the same ridicule and rejection before their vision becomes common sense. That's the cost of seeing clearly. 100. Most people don't actually want the truth. They want comfort disguised as meaning. Comfort feels safe, predictable, and kind. Truth feels cold, unstable, and confronting. One gives you peace, the other gives you freedom, but only after breaking something inside you. The comfort seekers fill their days with noise, affirmations, and distractions to protect themselves from awareness. The truth seekers, on the other hand, carry a quieter ache, the realization that reality isn't built for happiness, but for growth. That tension between comfort and truth defines the entire human struggle. Which side you choose shapes your life's tone. 120. Entire systems profit from keeping us comfortably unaware. Media thrives on outrage, not reflection. Politics depends on division, not understanding. Markets feed on desire, not contentment. The economy of ignorance is vast and well-funded. It rewards distraction because attention is power. To keep people consuming, they must stay half awake, just aware enough to crave more, but not enough to question why. The moment too many people start thinking deeply, the machine trembles. So the world teaches us to scroll instead of think, to react instead of reflect. Ignorance keeps everything moving smoothly. 100. But there's a hidden cost to seeing too clearly. When illusions fade, so does a certain kind of warmth. You begin to sense the emptiness beneath the noise, the loneliness behind laughter, the exhaustion behind ambition. You realize how much of human life is theater and how few people actually mean what they say. That clarity can hollow you out. It can make ordinary life feel unbearable. Yet in that pain lies validation. You're not broken for feeling weary of it all. You're simply awake in a world that prefers to sleep. 120. Modern culture calls this negativity. It preaches positivity like religion. Smile more, grind harder, manifest endlessly. Productivity has become therapy, and optimism has become obedience. But this kind of positivity doesn't heal, it hides. It teaches people to suppress doubt, to paint over despair instead of understanding it. Real strength isn't pretending to be fine. It's the courage to see life without filters. Forced optimism is the language of those afraid to feel. The thinker's melancholy isn't weakness. It's honesty in a culture addicted to denial. 100. When someone questions what the group believes, a reflex appears, quiet, automatic, and brutal. The dissenter becomes the enemy. Not because they're cruel, but because they make others feel uncertain. The group's defense mechanism is to exile the one who sees too much. They'll call him cynical, arrogant, or broken, anything to protect the illusion. This rejection isn't personal, it's biological. The tribe must survive, even at the cost of truth. So the thinker learns to live on the edge, speaking softly so as not to be erased entirely. 100. There's a fine line between madness and genius, and it's drawn by misunderstanding. Those who see differently often look unstable to those who don't. Every revolutionary idea, every profound insight, begins as confusion to the crowd. The thinker walks that edge daily, caught between worlds, doubting themselves while sensing something real just beyond words. It's a strange tension, like being both cursed and chosen. What separates madness from insight isn't vision. It's the ability to survive it, to stay sane while holding truths too heavy for ordinary minds. 120. Eventually, the thinker stops fighting for approval. The rejection, the misunderstanding, the isolation, they all begin to feel like a strange kind of cleansing. Solitude becomes sanctuary. The noise of the world fades, and something quieter begins to grow inside. A steadier awareness, a deeper peace. The thinker learns that solitude isn't punishment, it's purification. In silence, clarity matures. What once felt like exile starts to feel like freedom. And though the world may still fear thinkers, it's in that distance that true understanding begins to take root. There comes a point when the thinker quietly steps back from the world. Not out of arrogance, but exhaustion. Too much noise, too much pretending, too much effort spent trying to explain what cannot be explained. The deeper their thoughts go, the more fragile they become in the chaos of ordinary life. So they retreat, not to escape humanity, but to protect their sanity from it. Solitude becomes a shield, a quiet exile where the mind can breathe without defense. In silence, they rediscover something sacred, the space to simply be. 100. Freedom is a strange kind of pain. To be alone means no one controls you, yet it also means no one saves you. Solitude strips away distractions until only your own thoughts remain, and they can be merciless. But somewhere within that discomfort, something begins to grow. Thought, like flame, needs oxygen, and solitude provides it. Every insight, every breakthrough begins with distance. It hurts, but the hurt is cleansing. The thinker learns that freedom is not comfort, it's clarity. And clarity is always bought with loneliness. 100. Schopenhauer chose silence as his rebellion. While others sought recognition, he sought distance. He lived apart from society, writing in solitude, walking alone through quiet streets. To him, withdrawal wasn't defeat, it was survival. He believed the world's noise corrupted thought, that true understanding required separation. In that silence, he produced work that outlived those who mocked him. His solitude became his sanctuary, his weapon, and his redemption. By turning away from the crowd, he turned inward, and found a world richer, deeper, and infinitely more honest than the one outside. 120. The world, meanwhile, grows louder each year. Endless chatter, constant updates, opinions piled upon opinions. Everyone wants to be seen, no one wants to see. Noise has replaced meaning. Connection has been traded for attention. In that storm, solitude becomes almost rebellious. To disconnect feels unnatural, even selfish. Yet only in quiet do we remember how to think, how to feel without an audience. The thinker listens, not to the crowd, but to the silence between thoughts. And in that space, something rare still whispers. 100. Loneliness is often just transformation in disguise. When you withdraw from the world, it first feels like death, like losing everything that once gave you meaning. But slowly, the silence begins to change shape. It stops feeling empty and starts feeling alive. The stillness becomes a cocoon, wrapping you in discomfort until you're forced to grow beyond it. It's not isolation, it's incubation. Every great transformation begins here, in stillness, in solitude, in surrender. Loneliness is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of authenticity. 120. In that stillness, the thinker begins to see differently. Suffering stops being punishment and starts becoming teacher. Every disappointment reveals a deeper truth. Every silence carries meaning. Insight doesn't strike like lightning. It blooms like dawn. Slowly, gently, until one morning you realize that pain has been guiding you all along. The thinker's solitude becomes fertile ground, not emptiness, but origin. In the absence of noise, they start to hear the quiet rhythm of life itself, subtle, patient, honest. 100. Eventually, the thinker stops playing the game entirely. The chase for validation loses its pull. They no longer need to prove intelligence, morality, or worth. The world still moves in circles of ambition and envy, but the thinker has stepped outside the loop. They begin living by quieter laws: curiosity, compassion, restraint. True freedom isn't shouting your difference. It's no longer needing to. The approval once craved now feels irrelevant. This is the moment solitude transforms from exile into choice. The thinker has finally made peace with being unseen. 120. The nights are long in this stage, and the silence can turn heavy. But from that darkness comes endurance. The thinker learns patience, humility, the art of listening to what hurts. They discover that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about rebuilding quietly, again and again. The abyss, once terrifying, becomes a teacher. It strips away false identities until only what's real remains. When you've faced yourself completely, the world can no longer frighten you. You stop running from pain and start learning from it. 120. Somewhere along the way, something shifts. What once felt like punishment now feels like awakening. The thinker realizes solitude didn't take life away, it revealed it. The same silence that once haunted them now brings peace. They begin to understand that isolation isn't the opposite of connection, but its purest form. You can love the world more deeply when you no longer need it to understand you. The mind, once trapped in noise, finally rests in its own quiet revolution. 100. And from that peace comes a strange, radiant wisdom. The thinker who once walked alone now carries a light that needs no audience. The hermit's silence becomes language, the kind that speaks without words. The world that mocks solitude will one day seek its calm. For wisdom, like dawn, arrives slowly, almost unnoticed. Solitude gave birth to it, polished it, prepared it. What began as exile ends as enlightenment. The thinker steps forward again, not to rejoin the noise, but to guide it gently toward quiet truth. Pain is the raw material of philosophy. Every insight, every truth worth keeping, begins with something that once hurt. The thinker learns to take what wounds them and melt it down into understanding. Suffering becomes a kind of alchemy, where bitterness turns into wisdom the way lead turns into gold. Instead of trying to escape pain, they listen to it, translate it, shape it into words that heal. The world calls it philosophy, but really, it's survival through beauty, the art of making meaning from what was meant to destroy you. 120. After a while, patterns start to reveal themselves. Every age mocks its thinkers, then worships them too late. Every soul that dares to look deeper gets exiled first, then celebrated after. The cycle repeats endlessly. Rejection, reflection, redemption. Pain becomes the bridge between misunderstanding and recognition. Those who endure it without bitterness become the quiet architects of progress, unseen yet indispensable. 100. Suffering has a strange power. It sharpens perception. It burns away illusions. It teaches the eyes to see what comfort hides. Pain humbles the ego and deepens empathy. The thinker learns to look not for happiness, but for truth, and that shift changes everything. In time, they realize suffering isn't punishment but purification. Every scar becomes an extra sense, a way of reading the world more honestly. Through pain, the mind refines itself until even sorrow begins to shine. 120. Eventually, awareness brings calm. You stop reacting to every emotion as if it were a command. You start watching them like clouds passing through a vast sky. Detachment isn't coldness, it's maturity. The thinker learns that feeling deeply doesn't mean drowning in it. To observe without being consumed is its own kind of grace. That's when wisdom quietly replaces fear, and life becomes a mirror instead of a storm. 100. Sometimes, when the noise of the world fades, everything starts to feel unreal. Faces blur, routines dissolve, meaning slips through your fingers. But this detachment isn't madness, it's clarity. It's the mind stepping back to see the stage instead of the play. For a moment, you glimpse how fragile and temporary everything is. The world feels unreal because, in a deeper sense, it is a dream we all agree to share until we wake. 100. There's a quiet reward in patience. While others rush toward recognition, the thinker moves slowly, collecting small fragments of understanding. Growth happens in seasons, not seconds. Every winter of solitude prepares the spring of realization. Many great minds bloomed late, not because they were slow, but because they were thorough. The world often forgets that deep roots take time. Patience doesn't delay your purpose. It protects it from premature exposure. 120. As the noise quiets, something softer begins to guide you from within. The thinker stops seeking external approval and starts trusting intuition. It's not a loud voice. It's a subtle nudge, a knowing without reason. This inner compass becomes the only authority that matters. It points not toward success, but alignment. The more you follow it, the less you get lost in imitation. Truth begins to feel less like discovery and more like remembrance. 100. And then, one day, you notice you were never truly alone. Somewhere, scattered across the world, others like you exist, quiet souls who think too deeply, feel too much, and speak too little. They walk through the same silence, asking the same questions. Though unseen, they form a hidden tribe, a silent fellowship of minds. Knowing they exist, even without meeting them, brings comfort. You start to feel connected through invisibility itself. 120. Eventually, the thinker returns to the world, not to belong to it, but to understand it. Solitude has softened their edges. They no longer see people as asleep or blind, just afraid. Compassion replaces superiority. The thinker learns to meet others where they are, to listen more, to judge less. Solitude taught them distance. Compassion teaches return. Wisdom isn't withdrawal. It's the ability to step back in without losing yourself. 100. In the end, pain becomes the first language of meaning. The thinker who once felt cursed now sees the design. The suffering, the silence, the exile, all necessary steps toward awakening. They no longer need approval nor rejection. The cycle has completed itself. From isolation emerges integration. From confusion, clarity. The journey wasn't about escaping the world, but learning to see through it. Pain led them inward. Wisdom brings them back with light in their hands. In a world obsessed with noise, silence becomes rebellion. When everyone competes to be seen, the choice to disappear is radical. To step back, to live quietly, to think deeply, these are acts of resistance now. Nonconformity no longer needs banners or slogans. It exists in the refusal to participate in chaos. The thinker's rebellion is invisible, yet powerful. By not chasing trends or approval, they reclaim their own mind. In a time when attention is currency, withholding it is power. The quiet ones are not weak, they are simply free. 100. Schopenhauer's shadow still stretches across modern thought. His ideas planted seeds that later thinkers nurtured into forests. Nietzsche took his pessimism and turned it into strength. Freud found in him the roots of desire and suffering. Even today, psychology, art, and philosophy echo his tone. The recognition that beneath progress lies pain, and within pain lies meaning. Schopenhauer never needed followers. He created inheritors. His solitude produced a lineage of minds who turned suffering into understanding, shaping the modern world in silence. 100. Stillness, when chosen, is not weakness, it's power distilled. The thinker learns that chaos only wins when you react to it. To remain calm in a noisy world is to control your energy. Stillness is not absence of action, but mastery of it. In that pause between impulse and response, clarity lives. The world exhausts itself chasing motion. The wise preserve strength by standing still. The one who can sit in silence without fear commands a peace that no external victory can provide. In stillness, resistance becomes effortless. 120. Society forgets faces but remembers ideas. Time erases names, yet carries thoughts forward like whispers in the wind. This is the thinker's quiet revenge. The world may ignore them now, mock them, or claim they were wrong, but truth is patient. It outlives its deniers. Every philosopher's life ends, but their words continue walking through history, changing people they'll never meet. There's no need to fight for legacy. The work itself is the victory. The thinker's revenge is survival through wisdom. 100. Eventually, the thinker realizes freedom isn't something to win, it's something to release. The need to explain, to justify, to prove, it all dissolves. They no longer seek validation or agreement. The crowd's noise no longer touches them. Freedom becomes natural like breathing. It's not rebellion anymore, it's existence. To think freely without needing recognition is to live in truth. The thinker no longer argues with the world. They simply move through it with quiet certainty, untethered and whole. 120. Detachment, at its purest, isn't cold, it's compassionate. When you stop needing things to be a certain way, love becomes clearer. You start to care without clinging, to engage without losing yourself. The thinker learns that detachment doesn't mean withdrawal, it means balance. To love the world without illusion is the highest form of connection. You can see clearly and still choose kindness. You can stand apart and still remain tender. Detachment is not distance, it's depth. 100. Wisdom, too, becomes rebellion. In a culture that values speed over depth and noise over thought, stillness itself is subversive. The act of thinking carefully, of reading slowly, of feeling fully, these are radical gestures. To know yourself in a world designed to distract you is to rise above it. Knowledge isn't rebellion for its own sake. It's a quiet uprising against shallowness. The thinker's wisdom becomes their weapon, not to destroy, but to awaken. Awareness is the revolution that begins within. 120. When the thinker finally returns to the world, nothing outside has changed, but they have. The noise is still there, the illusions still shimmer, but now they see through it all. They move quietly, gently, no longer tempted by recognition or noise. Their calm unnerves people, but also draws them in. The thinker no longer resists the world. They walk beside it, untangled, observing with a soft smile. They have nothing to prove, and that's their quiet power. 100. Some souls are meant to stay on the edge. The thinker accepts their role as the eternal outsider, not cursed but chosen. Solitude becomes their natural climate, their clarity a home. They don't need belonging to feel whole. The world may call them distant, but they're simply free from its illusions. The thinker's solitude isn't emptiness, it's purpose. To see clearly, to live gently, to think deeply. These are not punishments. They're the privileges of perception. 120. And so, the story ends not with noise, but with peace. The thinker has seen the world's illusions, suffered its loneliness, and turned pain into meaning. Awareness no longer hurts, it liberates. The silence that once isolated them now feels like home. They don't seek answers anymore, only understanding. The thinker becomes one with the quiet, neither above nor below the world, but woven through it. In the end, wisdom speaks softly like breath. Peace is not found. It's remembered.